boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. I was actually asked by a good buddy on Twitter that goes by the name That Boy Vince to put some idiotic comments in the segments of my next video. A comment from a guy named YK Joe and a comment from a guy named Nuke.
They were taking shots at Turkey Alalshikh?
The guy named Joe said, exactly, he's doing everything they cried the PBC was doing, but worse. At least the PBC events are better.
What?
The other idiot that goes by the name Nuke said, PBC is what Turkey wishes he could be.
In what way?
Which is why he's in competition with them.
With who? With the PBC? Didn't he just have a bunch of PBC fighters on his last show? PBC fighters getting fight dates the PBC couldn't get them.
Amazon Prime has more money than the Saudis, too.
No, they don't.
This is why Tank, Canelo, Inouye have all turned down Turkey. All three do business with Prime.
This comment is so stupid and so wrong on so many levels.
Let's just say for argument's sake, it's not even true, but let's just say for argument's sake, that Amazon Prime as a platform has more money than the Saudis, then why aren't they using any of it to do more shows?
The PBC have only done 3 shows 8 months into this year. Just 3. And all 3 of them were pay-per-views.
We never got the regular fights, the non-pay-per-view fights that we've been hearing about since January of this year. We haven't seen that. We haven't seen a real investment from Amazon Prime into the PBC and their content. We haven't.
The promotion has been so bad, the marketing, that even Tank spoke up about it.
Javante Tank Davis is the one who said in his own words that the promotion for his last fight, which was his first fight on Amazon Prime, he's the one that said the promotion has been so ass, he skipped the grand arrivals.
His words.
That doesn't sound like Amazon's spending all that much money on marketing, on promotion, like Showtime used to, like Fox used to.
If now what Javante is saying is that the promotion for his fight was ass.
I mean, look at these two dumbasses, jerking each other off, agreeing with each other, and still singing Al Haymon's praises when he's reduced to just doing 3 shows 8 months into this year. You know, they used to do about 36 shows in a single calendar year. Between the budget they were getting from Fox and the budget they were getting from Showtime, they were doing approximately 36 shows.
This is what happens when people start talking about stuff that's above their pay grade.
Do you think these two bozos understand how network television works and why it was that the both of those networks decided not to renew with Al Haymon's PBC? Do you think they understand that? So when a network gives a guy like Al a budget for his content, it's in the hopes that his content will bring their network eyes,
viewers.
The both of those platforms made a long-term commitment to Al Haymon's PBC, and at the end of the deal, they decided not to renew because he didn't hold up his end of the bargain.
Do you think these two idiots understand that?
The reason Fox didn't sign on for 4 or 5 more years, or the reason Showtime didn't, the reason they gave Al Haymon the boot, and that's what they did. The reason after close to 40 years they left the sport of boxing is because throughout the duration of the deal, Al Haymon didn't deliver. He didn't deliver the eyes, the viewers, the subscribers.
For the money they were spending versus the little bit they were getting back, the higher-ups at Showtime decided it's not worth it. The higher-ups at Fox decided the same thing.
They both did. Because in the realm of network television, whatever draws eyes to the platform is good for business. And that's the business they're in. The PBC wasn't doing that.
It doesn't really matter what it is.
You could have a couple of sock puppets out there on a block. So long as people are watching it and it's drawing eyes to a platform, the platform will continue to invest. But if what they're getting for their money isn't doing that, they're gonna get the axe. Like the PBC did. Like the PBC did on NBC. Like they did on Fox. Like they did on Showtime.
You think they traded up because they're on Amazon now?
Then you explain it, stupid. Why are they doing less shows now on Amazon than they used to do on Showtime, than they used to do on Fox?
Why?
You can't explain why, because you're too goddamn stupid.
You know how stupid you sound comparing Turkey Alalshikh to Al Haymon? He's doing the opposite of what Al Haymon did.
Where Al Haymon was all about his side of the street and keeping his guys on his side of the street, Turkey is working with everybody on every side of the street, on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean, not just the American promoters, the British ones too. Boxer, Queensberry, Matchroom,
The American,
Top Rank, Golden Boy, and the PBC.
Or did you forget Isaac Cruz, Rayo Valenzuela, David Morrell, Andy Ruiz? Those are PBC fighters.
He all fought on his show. If Al Haymon and the PBC really had the fight dates to keep their own fighters active, then why were they on Turkey's show?
Stupid.
If the PBC really had the fight dates to keep their fighters active what were their fighters, why did so many of them leave earlier this year? Subriel Matias, Jaleel Hackett, Jahan Ingram.
Why'd Michelle Rivera go to Dimitri Salita? Why did Elvis Rodriguez go back to Top Rank?
When Boots achieved free agency earlier this year, why didn't he stick it out with the PBC? He's been boxing on PBC shows for years now.
Why'd he go with Eddie?
Why have both Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz, who characteristically box on PBC shows, why were their last fights on DAZN and Matchroom shows?
Why, stupid?
The love affair these guys have with Al Heyman is tantamount to one of those "my dad is better than your dad" arguments that the little kids used to have way back when.
Looks like your dad went out for cigarettes and never came back.
3 shows 8 months into this year, just 3. Most of this year is gone.
That's all you did?
That's it? You understand that the PBC used to put out a comprehensive schedule of fights, not just pay-per-views, regular fights too, that 8 months into the year, they would have done more shows than just 3 by now, but they're down to 3.
Amazon isn't giving them any money. It's just a distribution deal. All Amazon is to the PBC is a place to sell their fights, but they're not making a big investment in the PBC. So even if Amazon has a whole ton of money, they're not using it.
They're not spending it on that crap.
Gee, I wonder why.
So when you tell people that Turkey wishes he could be more like Al Heyman,
Are you on drugs?
maybe your mother was when she had you and that's why you're delayed.
Fetal alcohol syndrome.
By now, it's really not hard to see the position that the PBC are in. They're struggling to keep their heads above water.
They've been losing fighters in waves and droves, and what fighters remain are struggling to stay active, struggling to stay busy. So much so, they actually outsourced a few of them to a Riyadh season show this past Saturday.
Did you miss it?
There are still a few Haymonites around.
Why would anybody even have a problem with Turkey Alalshikh when all he wants to do is supplement the effort to make the fights that people ask for, like the undisputed fight with Fury and Usyk, or the undisputed fight with Beterbiev and Bivol?
All he was trying to do with Gervonta was make a fight between him and Devin.
Did that bother you? Did that make you mad? You will notice that what few critics are out there of Turkey are all centered around the American boxing scene. And it just so happens here in America, well, I told you, the Americans are a little different than the Brits. These are the kind of people that'll cut off their nose to spite their face. They're not actually happy that Turkey's here and doing what he's doing,
because they feel like he's upstaging Al Heyman.
when even if Turkey Alalshikh wasn't here, the PBC and Al Heyman would still be in a bad way.
Years of fucking off network money is why.
That idiot named Joe claimed that the PBC's events were better than Turkey's events, like what?
What?
Ruiz versus Ortiz on pay-per-view, Ortiz versus Charles Martin,
On pay-per-view. Thurman versus Barrios on pay-per-view.
Ruiz versus Areola on pay-per-view.
The audacity.
I'd like to believe that the nuke guy was just engagement farming by saying something this openly stupid via his monetized Twitter account, but these guys are serious, as we've seen guys like this many, many times over the years. This is what remains.
Still a few bozos out there, a few Haymonites.
Waiting for Big Al to come back from the liquor store.
Good luck.
Well, actually, the fight Turkey was pushing for, he stopped pushing for it, was Canelo and Crawford. And what was your thoughts about that fight if it would ever go down? Is that
I actually thought Crawford would beat Canelo before I saw him fight Saturday.
Madrimov, right?
Yeah, Madrimov he's a beast. He's
So
an
that
animal.
changed your mind a little bit?
It changed my mind. Yeah, it changed my mind. I think, look, the bigger, better man in the history of the sport will always be a good, small fighter. It's written in the history of boxing. So,
like you and Bernard.
exactly, like me and Bernard. Yeah, it didn't happen with me and Pacquiao. I mean, I was over the
You're
hill.
older, yeah.
I was older. I was shot.
Right.
But in the history of the sport, it always happens. The bigger, better man will always beat the smaller, good man.
I actually do agree with Oscar when it comes to that a good big man will beat an equally good little man. And having seen how Crawford looked at 154, I just think 168 is too high a mountain to climb for a fighter like Canelo.
There's no shame in that.
I don't think there is, because even when it was left to the imagination, it was still a crazy proposition, a crazy idea to hopscotch from 147 up to 154 all the way up to 168. For a guy like Canelo, that ain't no tune-up.
Crawford.
Israel Madrimov's Soviet style and that pendulum step, staying on his toes, bouncing back and forth with power because he has power of his own.
Crawford.
Israel gave Terence Crawford a lot of respect. That is why I think he lost the fight, lost it 7-5 in favor of Crawford. But Crawford respected him too.
Crawford.
And that was a guy with 10 or 11 fights, just 10 or 11 fights going in, that doesn't have the punching power of a Canelo Alvarez, the experience, durability of a Canelo Alvarez, battle-tested across 4 weight classes for many, many years now.
Crawford.
And where Oscar De La Hoya originally thought that Crawford might be able to beat Canelo Alvarez, he might be able to outbox him, he has since gone back on that. I don't blame him.
Initially, I gave Crawford a shot. Now I think Canelo would knock him out. The amount of right hands that Terence Crawford ate at the hands of Israel, if Israel can land that many right hands on you, so can Canelo. But when he does it...
Come on, Canelo's right hand's gonna be a lot more devastating than anybody's right hand at 154. Use your common sense.
Crawford.
Turkey doesn't want to make it anyway. He said he has lost interest in making that fight, openly taking shots at Canelo Alvarez, who he thinks wants to stay on easy street. Whatever it is.
Doesn't look to be happening.
But for all of the Terence Crawford fans, who I don't normally stand apart from, for all the Crawford fans who tore down Canelo Alvarez and trashed him, you will notice that they have become even more combative since this last weekend's fight, because now they look stupid. They look silly.
No, you look silly.
It's not because for a moment you believed that Terence might win that fight. It's because of how much shit you were talking.
See if you acknowledge that they're both great fighters, both Terence and Canelo.
You ain't gonna have nothing to feel silly about if maybe you were a little bit off base thinking Crawford might beat him. You won't feel silly, but if you were bumping your gums and talking a bunch of shit,
Bunch of this and that about how Crawford's gonna do to Canelo what Floyd Mayweather did to Canelo.
this is not the Canelo Alvarez that Floyd Mayweather fought. The Canelo that Floyd Mayweather fought was a 23-year-old kid. This is a much more experienced and battle-tested, hardened Canelo Alvarez that isn't at 154. He's at 168.
You need me to tell you that?
You didn't have to trash Canelo Alvarez as a fighter to give Terence Crawford a shot, to give him a chance in that fight. You didn't have to do that, but because you did, now you look stupid. Now you look silly.
How do you expect to believe any of that shit you're saying?
They can both be great fighters in their own right, and it's perfectly okay if maybe Canelo is just too big for Terence.
Too much.
Perfectly all right, because that's not a knock on Terence. Like I said, it was a crazy idea from the very beginning.
Why do you think Virgil could beat Crawford?
Oh, better skills. I literally think he has better skills, and that's only it's not the punching power. Crawford has ring IQ like there's no tomorrow, but he was exposed last Saturday night. He was exposed against Madrimov.
In what way? What do you mean?
Exposed in a way where if you change up your style, if you don't stay in front of Crawford, okay? If you're not a target to him, right in front of him, he'll pick you apart. But if you're on your toes and you throw your jab and you're throwing your hooks and your combination...
Virgil doesn't even fight like that. Virgil doesn't fight on the balls of his feet. He's not on his toes bouncing back and forth.
Well, he has a jab, and he shows the jab. He's not a jabber. He uses his jab to get up on a guy
Get close.
and stand in front of him.
He has trouble figuring you out. And with Virgil Ortiz's power and
Thought it wasn't about Virgil's power.
speed and ring generalship, it can be a great fight.
Great fight. Yeah, it can be a great fight. It can be a great fight, but I don't think it's a fight that Virgil Ortiz wins. No.
Sorry.
And Virgil doesn't fight anything like Israel Madrimov. Make no mistake. He doesn't fight like a Soviet fighter with a pendulum step on his toes, on the balls of his feet, bouncing back and forth, waiting to explode. Virgil is a pressure fighter.
The entirety of a round, he wants to put pressure on you, stand in front of you, and break you down. Whereas Israel is a little bit more tricky. He's not always inside, he's not always outside.
That's why it was a little bit difficult for Terence Crawford to figure him out, but as far as figuring him out, I think he did. I think he won 7-5. I think a lot of people are being disingenuous, exaggerating about how much Israel had success in that fight. Yeah, he had some success.
Crawford.
But he didn't win that fight, yeah. Israel was tricky for Terence, but Terence was tricky for Israel. Israel was waiting for the right moment to jump in and put some punches together.
But he had to be careful.
Careful not to get countered, which is what led to long spells of him just moving around and feinting and waiting, and before you know it, round's over.
That's not what Virgil would do.
I like Virgil Ortiz as a fighter. I'm a fan of that kid. But if they made that fight next between Terence and Virgil, I've got Terence. I've got Terence knocking him out. Because Virgil's not going to fight on his toes, picking the right moment to move in. No, he's going to try to barrel forward and overpower Terence Crawford. That's what he does. That's who he is.
You know what that fight might look like?
What?
The David Evanesian fight, because he's a pressure guy. He's an aggressive fighter. So is Virgil.
Now, granted that Virgil is a better brand of pressure fighter, a stronger pressure guy than David Evanesian. I do think Virgil punches a lot harder than David.
He's younger too.
But I wouldn't necessarily say that time is on Virgil's side, because even though he's several years younger than Terence Crawford, did you see him earlier today? Did you see him? He looked a bit drawn.
Gaunt.
Did you guys forget that the last two fights that he had were fought just north of junior middleweight? He hasn't actually made junior middleweight yet.
154.
He's supposed to for this fight, because this fight is for a WBC interim title. He's got to get to 154, and we'll see if he does.
But he looked drawn. And that's why I don't think time is on his side. Yeah, you're younger, but how much longer can you try to make this weight?
I don't think Terence Crawford is going to have any problems making 154 moving forward, whereas Virgil hasn't made it yet.
See if he does.
Oscar De La Hoya is the king of talking a good one, because when he talks about Virgil and Terence, it reminds me of how he was talking about William and Shakur.
In the end, you held that fight to ransom.
Oh, you think that Virgil would beat Terence, like you thought Jaime Munguia would beat Canelo, and how you thought Terence Crawford would beat Canelo?
You admitted you changed your mind.
You put Virgil Ortiz in the ring with Terence Crawford after this weekend. If he makes it through his fight, you won't have to change your mind, because Terence will change it for you.
When he knocks Virgil out.
Because I'm absolutely convinced he would knock Virgil out. Virgil's too aggressive. He's going to stand right in front of him. He's going to try to and get caught coming in with something he doesn't see.
No, Virgil is very strong. That's what he's got working for him, that he is very strong.
You don't want to trade with him, and you don't want to let him hit you, but Terence won't. Terence is going to move around, create space, look for the opening, and catch him coming in. That's why saying that Israel Madrimov exposed Terence, let me tell you something. Whatever he exposed, it's not something that your fighter can exploit, because he doesn't fight nothing like Israel.
Exactly.
So everybody's piling on Terence Crawford because he looked a little bit human off a long layoff against Israel. How would your fighter look against Israel?
Damn that. How would your fighter look against Terence?
Make the fight. I've got Crawford.
Crawford.
You're so confident talking a good one. Make the fight.
Crawford.
If you really mean what you say.